Hello and welcome back to Fresh Talks at the Global Berry Congress here in Rotterdam, where I'm delighted to say I've got a very special guest here with me, Dale Pinnock, also known as the Medicinal Chef.
Yeah,
welcome,
good
Dale.
to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Please do tell us a bit about yourself. For anybody that doesn't know, what is the Medicinal Chef and what's your area of expertise?
The Medicinal Chef. Well, I mean, it's a deliberately provocative title. I just wanted people to think differently about the food that they're eating and realise that it's not just fuel, it's actually something that has the potential to influence your short and long-term health. So that's kind of why I came up with the title, a little bit cheeky. But my background, I've been in the nutrition industry for 25 years, did undergrad in human nutrition, a second undergrad in herbal medicine, a master's in nutritional medicine, and I've cooked all my life.
Yeah.
So I use the preparation of food as a delivery system for the information.
Yeah.
So rather than, I mean, even though exactly what I did today was stand up and do a PowerPoint presentation, generally I kind of actually do things in the context of preparing food.
Yeah.
So people have got a practical framework to put the information in so they can go home and start to make changes straight away. That's the kind of concept behind it.
I see. And what inspired you to really want to get involved and to obviously to help people as well to eat better?
I think like a lot of people that end up segueing into the nutrition world, it was through my own health challenges. Nearly everyone you speak to that gets into this industry, it's like, well, I got diagnosed with this or I had this kind of issue.
Yeah.
For me, it was acne from the age of about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
It was that summer of leaving primary school to go up to secondary school.
Yeah.
That kind of time in your life when you just start to compare yourself to your peers.
Yes.
And my face kind of exploded. It wasn't pretty at all. And I went to so many different doctors and specialists and had every lotion and potion you could imagine.
Yeah.
And nothing really made much of a difference.
Yeah.
Got to about 15 years old, sat around my friend's house one night feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And his mum lent me this book. And it was like a proper old school book on nutrition.
Yeah.
And I read this thing cover to cover in a weekend, because I was ready to try anything, to be honest. And that was my first introduction to the concept that we can actively engage in our own healthcare. And we can, we don't have to be passive in this whole process and in our health destiny. We can actually take proactive steps to kind of change the situation a little bit. And that was it. I was hooked and read over 1,000 books and eventually went off to uni.
So you were that almost unique thing, a teenager willing to change their diet towards something more healthy.
To be honest, I mean, kids are pretty awful. When you got something like that going on, life wasn't that great. So I was just like, you know what? If it's going to help, I'll do it. If I thought it was going to help, I'd have gone in the garden wrapped in tinfoil at midnight. It would have made a difference, as long as it actually would have done some good. But luckily, the whole cascade of events that followed and how it changed my life completely, it's been such a blessing. It's been amazing.
But that's quite an interesting point, isn't it? Because we always think just banging on about health won't get kids inspired. But you had a very specific point there. It helped with acne, and that's something I bet teenagers would respond to, something that's very specific and relatable to themselves.
They would, although you know what, this newer generation of teenagers that are coming up, they're a different breed from us lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the middle of the rave scene, so we were like sort of like in dark rooms with flashing lights. They're like very, very health conscious, very environmentally conscious. A completely different breed. So I'm seeing really different patterns in some of the teenage generations now in the UK particularly.
And we're here today to talk about berries, and you look at it from a very scientific point of view. What's the role of berries within a healthy diet, do you feel?
Well, I mean, taking it outside the role of a healthy diet, obviously a healthy diet needs to be broad and have lots of different elements going on, but there's a lot of research that's been done around berries, particularly in the UK. The University of Reading been doing a lot of work, and we've come to realise that certain compounds within the berries, particularly the colour pigments, things like anthocyanins that give very, very deep purples and dark red colour pigments to berries, can have some very interesting effects on cardiovascular health. So in the cardiovascular system, the inside of our blood vessels is lined by a skin called the endothelium. Right. And this is like, obviously it's a barrier, but it controls many aspects of circulatory dynamics. We know that the endothelial cells that make up that skin can take in these polyphenols, these colour pigments, very rapidly. And when they do, it sets off a whole cascade of events. It sets off like metabolic distress within the cell, causes those cells to secrete a gas called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide moves out into the smooth muscle that makes up the vessel wall, makes the muscle fibres relax. The vessel gets bigger, the pressure within it drops. The take-home message is they can lower blood pressure, but also protect the vessel from damage as well. So that's one of the things. And in that context, yes, it's kind of helping to reduce blood pressure, that kind of stuff, but cognitive enhancement. I mean, some of the work at Reading has been focused on, okay, if you're causing this vasodilatory effect with these berry-derived compounds, what could be the offshoot of that, and they've realised that enhanced blood flow to the brain can improve cognitive performance, but also athletic performance as well. The Queen Margaret University have done some work where they looked at using berry extracts with athletes, particularly track athletes that were doing things like 100 metres, and they would see improved times in association with increased doses of berry polyphenols. So it does have this very, very clear beneficial effect on cardiovascular health. But then in recent years, we've started to also see that they can benefit the health of the digestive system as well via the gut microbiome, that bacterial colony that dwell in the gut. Polyphenols can enhance their growth, can enhance diversity in bacterial strains, but also be almost like a defense mechanism against some of the bacterial strains that could potentially cause a problem. So they seem to be kind of selective to actually supporting the growth and flourishing of the beneficial ones, but down-regulating the ability of potentially problematic ones to actually cause a problem.
I mean, that's absolutely fantastic stuff. It's also quite technical. So how do berry suppliers or people willing or needing to get across these messages to a generation of consumers that apparently have an attention span of 7 seconds?
That's really the role of people like myself.
So how do you do that? How do you get that across them?
So you can do it very simply. So you could say, okay, why berries good for me? Well, they help to lower blood pressure and protect your blood vessels from damage. It's easy. It's very easy to come out with a one-liner. But what you need is like an independent voice, an independent body that can be a bridge between the research, the product, and the consumer to be that kind of central point that's not necessarily. I mean, if I had my own product, I couldn't say any of this. You know, as an independent expert, I can stand up and say whatever the hell I like, whether it's here, whether it's on TV, whatever, because it's just quoting the research and it's just for educational or informational purposes. As soon as I held up a product and said this will do that, I'll be in the clink, right? It's a very, very specific legal situation. But as an independent voice between research and the consumer, on all levels, I mean, all aspects of food and nutrition, that's the way to actually get the message out there, and then ride on the back of that, I guess. Actually use any kind of exposure from someone like myself to your advantage. Yeah,
most definitely. And we've obviously got a bit of an obesity epidemic going on at the moment in Britain, to larger or lesser degrees in other countries as well. Do you think that healthcare professionals maybe need to have a better understanding of nutrition and diet?
100%. When I was doing my masters, most of the other students on that course were general practitioners or gastroenterologists.
Right.
So, I mean, they're certainly the newer generation as well are incredibly aware that in terms of degenerative illness, chronic illness, the stuff that's really plaguing our healthcare system, they are winning. They're not winning the battle. They're losing the battle completely, because it's not a set of issues that can be sorted by drugs. Yes, the drugs can keep people alive, but they do absolutely nothing to actually get into the underlying root cause of what's actually going on in the first place. So, they're acutely aware that the healthcare system is failing the actual things that are plaguing it. Okay, so I mean, when it comes to emergency medicine, if I go outside now and get hit by a bus, I don't want to see broccoli, right? I want to, I want a surgeon, right? But in that context, modern medicine absolutely is just mind-blowing miracle work. But when it comes to things like cardiovascular disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, these things that are really cutting most of our lives short, absolutely losing the battle. It's a lifestyle-derived issue, and that's why lifestyle medicine is becoming such a growing profession. And I see so many general practitioners, healthcare professionals that are embracing lifestyle medicine, lifestyle prescribing, saying, well, have you thought about joining the gym? Have you got a good support network around you? What are you doing with your diet? Bringing all of these factors together. So it is, we're in a changing environment, and it's very exciting to see where it's going.
And so does it make sense, therefore, for berry producers to link beyond their own category and link to exercise and link to these other areas that you mentioned?
Because there's so much opportunity. And there's so much opportunity. I mean, obviously, what they're providing is a raw ingredient. But that raw ingredient could be turned into so many other things that can enter different markets. I mean, using the information like the thing from the Queen Margaret University, where they were using berry extracts in performance, you can actually start to create functional foods for sports nutrition market. There's all these other potential avenues, and it's like seeing how they link together.
Most definitely. I'm going to ask you a question. If you were health minister for a day, or not even for a day, if you're appointed health minister, let's put it that way, what would be some of the policies that you would put in place to improve the health of the nation?
Nutrition education in school, 100%. You know, I mean, most of the curriculum in the schools now is just to create drones for industry. There's nothing about how to actually look after yourself. Learn how to manage money. You learn about nutrition and lifestyle. That would be one of the first things. Absolutely make sure that kids are taught about this stuff. Because, you know, they're total sponges and they love it. When I've done talks at schools, they're like, absolutely love it, absolutely all over it. So get that in at the beginning, so people have just got that fundamental, basic knowledge of how to look after themselves. It's a really, really simple thing, but so many people are just unaware of obviously the profound potential that changes in diet and lifestyle can have, but also the simplicity of it as well. It doesn't have to be complicated. It isn't all about kind of like yoga pants and wonga wonga berries or whatever, like any kind of weird fad foods. It's about everyday ingredients, all the things that you've seen around. You know, it's about adopting those and like learning what they do, how they behave in the body, how your health is influenced by small changes in different areas. It's really not complicated when you actually take time to teach it to people. And I think that's one of the primary things. If that's taught in school.
Sounds fabulous. And is there a role for technology to play as well? I mean, I imagine a future in which maybe there are more personalised diets. Will people go into stores and get recommendations for what they could eat?
Well, nutrigenomics is an area that's growing. I mean, obviously, it's kind of gene-environment interactions and the study of gene-environment interactions. Like one person will react. I mean, we say that there are differences to a degree, but even though we've got variations of our genetics, we still share, put my teeth in, the same physiology. We still share that same fundamental physiology. And there are certain rules that kind of apply to all of us. And I think if we start at that point, that gives most of us the baseline. But then I think, you know, when it comes to like maybe processing certain individual nutrients and maybe supplement programs, that kind of stuff, that's where nutrigenomics can maybe offer more insight. But there are certainly set dietary patterns that are relevant to everyone because we're all human beings and we all function the same way within quite a narrow set of parameters. Even though there are these genetic variations, they're only so far. You know, there's only so far along the spectrum that they can vary.
Sure. Well, we very much look forward to seeing how that goes. Dale, unfortunately, that's all that we've got time for, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Check back in later on during the course of the day for further interviews here.